Round the fire, warm and bright, stocked up food for the night. Got our plans set in gold for the days when it's cold. Tools and gear stacked up high in the cabin we reside, listening to the winds howl, prepping for the morning's prowl. At the purpose fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Preppers Fireside. I think the more turbulent times get, I'm going to have to make that a much less mellow tune introducing this, aren't I? some death. Shall I change it to a death metal intro?
Probably something a bit upbeat so you don't get people doing a Michael Hutchinson on you before it's even finished.
That's a great way to start this topic off, Brian. Thank you very much for that one. Yes, today we are talking, it is World Mental Health Day, if anybody didn't know. There's a world day for everything, I feel like, these days. World Kinder Egg Day and all sorts, you know. But it's World Mental Health Day, and we thought it would be a good opportunity to come on and speak about that on the actual day. So usually it's weekends, but, you know, it is what it is. So today with me, I have Brian. How are you doing, Brian?
All good, buddy. Yourself?
I'm good. I made it on time and we started the live stream without talking to ourselves for 15 minutes. So it's a good start. And Alpha Kilo Prepper Andy himself. How are you doing, Andy?
Yeah, not bad, mate. You?
I'm good. Right. And in the chat, we have Steve-O1982, who was first in and said, I'm the only one. Nice Highlander reference there. There could be only one. Sapper Prepper UK is in. Anyone that doesn't know, Sapper Prepper will be starting his own channel soon, so give him a click and a subscribe. Get ready for his content coming. Learner Prepper's in the room. Liz says hello all. And Jamie Skynet Labs Gamer says hi from Portsmouth. There we go. So, and there's 17 other people in here. It was originally going to start at 8 and we've bumped it to 7, so we'll lose a few. Right. Mental health. So it's always a subject that people kind of talk about a bit more now than they used to. So the first question to both of you is, when it comes to mental health, what do you think? Do you think it's a different mindset now as to it was 10, 15 years ago? Brian?
I think it's floated, that it's more socially acceptable to talk about it now. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I think a lot of big companies have got policies and procedures in place and nice fluffy words and pamphlets, but that's just to discharge, perhaps I'm being cynical, discharge their liabilities.
No, I don't think you're being cynical. You get all these people are quick to spit out, be kind, and it's okay to be not okay and stuff like that. And then the next breath, they're tearing somebody apart on Facebook. So it's one thing saying it and one thing doing it. Andy, do you find it's easier to talk about these days, or is it the same?
Yeah, I definitely think it's easy to talk about these days. And there's, like Brian said, there's a lot more emphasis put on it from companies and that type of thing, but I still do feel like it's lip service. I feel like it's a lot of ticky boxes for people. I think it's easy to talk about, but I don't think anything's actually changed in terms of funding, in terms of how things are dealt. I mean, I used to be a therapist that finished in March. So and when I first started, for example, it was around about the waiting time was maybe 4 weeks to get in to see, say, someone like me. And then by the time I left, it was 8 months.
Wow. Is that due to an increase in demand through more mental health issues, or is it an increase in demand because it's more acceptable to seek therapy?
It could. I suppose it could be a bit of both, mate, to be fair.
Yeah. Interesting. I'd hate to see what the wait lists are right now. The wait list for major surgeries probably is 8 months at the moment. So what's the physiological effects of living on a constant state of readiness when it comes to your mental health? Because we're preppers, we have that kind of you always be ready, always be prepared, always be aware. Does that affect your mental health, Brian?
I think it could affect your mental health if you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
I think if you are going to be in a dark place all the time, sitting, watching the news, paranoid something's going to go wrong, and worrying about it constantly, well, prepping's supposed to be about making your life better. That's not making your life better. That's letting it dominate your life. So you've got to try and strike a happy balance between aware and not letting it dominate your life.
Yeah. Andy, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, and I think I always view prepping, mate, in that sense of it reduces that for me. So if something does happen, like I suppose like all three of us, I know what my actions are, I know what my plan is, I know what I'm going to do, I know where my kit is. So I really don't spend time thinking about what the issue is or what could happen because I don't get everything in place. I think it's important for people who are just starting. Like you see on a couple of times where you've been on different groups and someone says, what type of respirator should I buy? And I message them privately and just say, just calm down for a second. Don't worry about respirators. Don't worry about just small steps, climb mountains, as they say, and start off small. I think people who start off wanting to prep and make things better for themselves, jump in at the deep end and think they need a respirator and a CBRN suit and they need duct tape for the windows. And I think that is where is like Brian said, that's where your brain can spiral and you can end up down a rabbit hole. You really can burn yourself out thinking I haven't got enough food, I haven't got enough water, I haven't got enough. Yeah. So for me, that's the dangerous part of starting out to prep, getting caught up in that spiral.
Definitely don't run before you can walk. And it's just look at what sustains your life, right? So that's what you got to think about: water and food, right? So that's your main 3 points that you got to think about. Then worry about 3,000 rounds of ammunition, gas masks, and a bunker after the fact. I'll ask you this one first, Andy, because you used to be a therapist. What misconceptions about mental health do you encounter most often?
Oh, good question. I think, mate, the main one. So, full disclosure, everyone, I stopped doing it in March. So I haven't done it for about 6 months. But what I would say was, mate, that the main misconception people come in and spoke to me about was they thought they were coming in for they had a mental health issue, and what they really needed to do was talk about being resilient. That's pretty much what they needed. They were going through a difficult part of their life, and they thought they were going through mental health struggling. They weren't really. What they needed was they needed someone to talk to come through maybe a structured approach. I suppose what us three do with a lot of problems. That was kind of more so what they needed. So I think most people think they struggle with mental health, but what they're really struggling with and what people don't get taught is how to be resilient through problems. So for like you, Mike, for example, when the clutch went on your car, so you get that fixed and then you move on with the problem. Whereas a lot of people were getting stuck with what the problem was and not how to solve the problem. So for me, that wasn't necessarily a mental health issue, what they thought they had. It was resiliency and how to overcome issues. I think that was the most common misconception that people come from me for.
It sounds like a fine line, doesn't it, between what could be a mental health issue? People just want labels for things now, Brian. They just want to stamp a label on everything.
100%, yeah. For a lot of different reasons. Possibly to give an excuse to shitty behaviour a lot of times. But I think there's a real misconception, like Andy was saying, regarding what is a mental health problem, what is a lack of coping skills. Because when COVID hit, the kids were damaged for 2 or 3 years. Formative years of their teenage years, they've basically come out into the big bad world 3 years down the line, 18, 19, 20-year-old. And they lack fundamental basic coping skills. They'll not make a phone call, mums to do it, dads to do it. Everyone's to be spoon-fed. And I don't mean to generalise all children and all and belittle anybody. It's just a personal opinion that always the generation behind you or behind them is always worse and had it easy, has got it better, right? But I genuinely do believe that there is a fundamental lack of resiliency and coping skills Like every teenager you speak to is stressed out. About
Mhm.
what? I mean, they're always stressed out. That's not stressed. You're just annoyed about something in your life that's pissed you off. That's not stress. They just don't
Yeah.
cope well with change or demands of normality of life. And that's what I see more.
Yeah, it's interesting how like the awareness of mental health has progressed over the generations and become more acceptable to talk about, yet that resilience has gone down. Why do you think that is, Andy?
I think because, with the exception of COVID, I think life is very, very easy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Very, very easy. Like, you've got technology and information at the touch of your fingers. Like, but back in the, I don't say back in the day because I'm not that old, but when you used to watch an episode week to week,
Mm-hmm.
I know people now who skip an entire season just to binge watch it at the end of the season, so they don't have to wait week to week to week. So I think a lot of things that we were taught and a lot of things that we put up with, and like Brian was saying, a lot of the younger generations have never had to put up with that. Even something simple as waiting week to week for an episode. So when it comes to the big problems like COVID, like when you had to stand outside of a supermarket 3 miles between each other with gloves and a mask on, that to them is totally. I know it was an alien concept to everybody, but I think that's where it went. The quality of life is quite high, and the comfort of life is quite high. So, like Brian was saying, they think they're stressed, and they're not. They're just pissed off that the phone won't work or the app's down or that type of thing.
Interesting you mentioned that, because often it said technology can affect mental health negatively, because obviously you hear about these teenagers that are being bullied on social media. When we were at school, you know, if you were bullied, it stopped at 3:30 and it was all peace and quiet until the next morning at 9, you know, unless somebody sent you a carrier pigeon with an insult on. But in an EMP situation, if we're talking prepper side of things, and they lose that technology, is that even more mental stress for them? The generation's going to suffer there, Brian?
Short term, yes. Long term, no. And I'll qualify that by the early days of the big C word. People were nicer. Genuinely, people were nicer for the first couple of weeks, where you could perhaps go out a walk within a mile of your house, albeit you couldn't get near anybody. They were more sociable. They weren't sitting at home because they were bored shitless. They were out, they were going for a walk in the sunshine, they were taking their dogs out, they were going on a small bike ride. They were genuinely nicer people. It was only as time went on and they were getting totally hacked off with it, the novelty wore off. They went back to being complacent and whinging about everything. But for the most part, when technology wasn't the be all and end all and they had other things to do, like get out of the house, I think they were nicer people.
Yeah. Your perspective, Andy, from technology pro, is it a good thing for mental health or a bad thing?
I'm totally in line with Brian. I think short term they would think it would literally be the end of the world, and long term I think it would be a lot better for them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So reliant on it now, aren't we? Everyone, even it's not just that generation. I think we all
it's everybody now.
Never leave home without our phones. It used to be don't leave home without 10p for the phone box, just in case. Let's quickly go to the comments. Me being a prepper gives my daughter anxiety issues as she can't handle the world situation. That's interesting that your prepping is giving somebody else anxiety. Do you think that's kind of showing the fear? You're going to speak, Brian?
I was going to say, I think that's prevalent in a lot of people, and I can understand that. People don't want to face there could be a potential problem. What they'll generally turn around and try and make light or joke of the fact that you're prepping, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, you're crazy, blah, blah, blah. They'll make fun of it rather than face the situation, right? Because if they face the situation, they might realise that they're not prepared or they don't want to deal with that situation. It's easier just to box it away and perhaps demonise somebody else instead. That particular instance with the daughter and anxiety, which is a terrible thing, sit down and explain about the preps that you have got and how it could make things easier, and not the end of the world, there's big bombs, bullets, bangs, like, oh, the lights go out, but don't worry, because we've got candles. Or we can't get to the shops, there's a bad snow, but don't worry, because look, we've got all this stuff. It seems to be that the kids dwelling on the negative aspects rather than the glass half full, but look at all the things we've got if that does happen. As unlikely as it is, try and glass half full.
Yeah. Do you have to protect kids from being exposed to prepping, Andy, or let them embrace it? What's your thoughts around that?
I suppose it would depend. It would depend on the age, mate. I think when they're younger and littler, is even the word. When they're younger, I think a lot of things around the prepping world can be made a lot more fun, because it can be in the guise of camping. You go camping, that type of thing. So it's a lot easier when somebody's older, like Leanne's daughter there, and the situation, and they've got anxiety from it. I suppose when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So instead of worried about she couldn't handle a world situation, maybe phrase it and look at it in terms of, you couldn't handle a world situation if we had nothing.
Yeah.
But the situation would be a lot better because Mum has, like Brian was saying, Mum has stuff for if there's a blackout. If for example, the lorry, like the HGV drivers went on strike, Mum has a whole pantry of food. The way I always frame it, prepping is, all I want to do if something does happen, my main goal is to keep my quality of life I have now going. That's all it's for. I don't want anything extra. I don't want anything less. It is literally to keep the routine and my quality of life going. So maybe that's the best way to explain to a daughter, irrelevant of what the situation is, whether it's flooding, whether it's the power goes out, whatever the situation is. Leanne can say, well, all Mum's doing is just maintaining our quality of life.
Yeah. It's probably is on a level as well, because anxiety about preparing for something is one thing, but anxiety about being in that situation, if you had no food and no water and had to go out to the FEMA trucks or the equivalent, the Red Cross or whatever in this country, then that's going to be surely spike more. So it's probably the lesser of two evils in that sense. Ready Prepper One's in the room. He said, everyone is addicted to the black screen. It's the hidden mental health pandemic. There you go. I'll look at that one in a second. Right. What's the mindset shifts necessary for effective prepping? Because if I'm brand new and the first video I come across is not one of our videos, let's say, and I think, oh my God, I need to prepare. I need to go to the Tesco and buy the entire stock now. What mental mindset shift do you need to do to be a prepper? Brian?
Take a deep breath, take a step back, and look at what you've got. Because you don't know what you need unless you know what you've got first, right? So rather than buying all the things, have a look at other channels. Have a look at your channel, Andy's channel, a lot of channels. Canvass the opinion, right? Look at what works for you in your situation and what's achievable without destroying your quality of life. There's no point having hundreds of preps everywhere if you can't go to the kids to the cinema, you can't go for a meal out or whatever. There's no point. You've got to strike that happy balance, right?
Yeah. Right. Andy, do you have to have a different mindset to be a prepper from your average Joe?
Yeah, I definitely think you do. I think you have to have a. I suppose the mindset, mate, that I have twofold. One, where I said before, where I'm just looking to maintain my quality of life, and then if something did go wrong, and it's to protect the people that I love, which is why I do it. Like Brian said, though, mate, everybody, when we're on about mental health, everyone talks about work-life balance. You have to have what I always say. You have to have a prep-life balance. Like Brian said there, me and Brian have both been to America this year. I've just come back. I'm out for a meal at the weekend with a partner. You have to maintain your life, and you have to you have to go out and do stuff. And like Brian said, take the kids to cinema. You have to do those things, because when you leave the house and you're not on on those YouTube pages that you're on about. You know, when you sat there having a drink with my partner the other day, and I said to her, you know, the world is actually, it actually isn't that bad. Once you leave your YouTube world and, you know, you stop looking at your phone and you go out for a meal and you go out for a drink and you look about and you see everybody chatting, having a laugh, and you bump into other people and you go feel, you actually realise that the world's not actually that bad. So it is a prep life balance where when you can afford things, you get things in. Like I just bought that thing Brian suggested the other day, that Anchor power bank. That there is purely for, if the power went out, we could charge our phones. I could charge my torches. Do you know what I mean? Just to maintain some element of quality of life.
Yeah.
But on the backside of that, I'm going out for a meal at the weekend. So you have to. It's striking a balance, so you're not just constantly waxing all your money on the latest respirator or whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting you saw what you say about going out and you're seeing people like that, because I do go out and I see people like that all the time. Just, you know, worried about the football results and worried about this, that, and the other, but nothing else. Like, it's almost, I know the mainstream media doesn't cover it as much as non-mainstream, but people still know stuff's going on. Are we a nation of bury your head in the sand, Brian, and chin up, carry on?
We're a generation, we're a nation of somebody else will fix it. Somebody else will look after my house, my garden, my children. It's the teacher's job to discipline the children. No, it's your job to make sure they've got manners. It's always somebody else's job. Well, as it's been demonstrated over the last period of disasters and things that went wrong, 9 times out of 10, there's no Chinooks with food parcels dropping them in your garden, right? There's only you. And there's the community you build around you. Okay? So there'll come a situation in life where you can't absolve all your responsibilities to somebody else. And you're going to have to man up and do something about it. Why not do it now in a controlled manner?
Yeah. You mentioned community. Community support has like always been important when it comes to mental health, and you know, people say get out there and socialize and things like that. Andy, how does that work if people are planning to prep lone wolf, and or even if it's just your own family? Because even in immediate family, you could become like a hermit sort of thing that way. And even pre and post SHTF situation, surely that's got to be taken into account when it comes to mental health, because it's all right having all the stuff to survive, but if in 2 weeks you just want to jump off the side of the bridge, then
I think that may. I think if you have the mindset of being a lone wolf prepper and you're going to go alone, I think you're already in a certain mind frame anyway, where you don't want to engage with people and you're kind of happy on your own. You know, to switch from being a lone wolf. I mean, it's easy to do it now. Like if you came to like the Scottish meet that we're going to, you know, if you went to the Midlands one, if you went like that, you start networking now. I can see it being easy to get out the mindset of being a lone wolf prepper. But if you're a lone wolf prepper and something does happen, I don't see a way out of it, mate. Once you're a lone wolf and something happens, to then go and approach another group and say, "Hi guys, can you let me in?" And it's just, if I suppose the only thing is, if you're a lone wolf prepper now, start networking.
Yeah. What about when it's not by choice, Brian? What about, I mean, because there'll be a lot of people that sit here watching this that not necessarily want to be a lone wolf prepper, but they are isolated. Maybe they live out in the sticks and they don't socialize much and they don't have much of a social life as it is. How would they go about that? Or are they just going to be stuck in that lone wolf situation?
Well, they've made the first step. They're here. They're listening. They're interacting in the chat box. Who knows? They might actually be able to talk to somebody within the chat, and they realise that they're close to them. So the first step they've already taken by interacting in this group, and perhaps in any other groups. There'll always be somebody. It's just that nobody actually talks about it. There's probably more preppers than you realise. They just don't call themselves a prepper. They just like to store stuff for a rainy day, right? Whatever they want to call it or do, it's the same thing, but nobody talks about it. So the fact that they're here, I'm delighted.
Yeah. Yeah, similar to mental health in that aspect. It's shunned sometimes and it's not talked about sometimes. Interesting comparison. Andy, what are some of the mental health challenges for long-term isolation for preppers that they should be aware of, and what could they do to mitigate the effects of that if they haven't managed to build a community or a group and stuff? What can they do?
I think the first one, mate. I think the first danger would be burnout. If your brain is constantly 24/7 thinking about where's this, where's that, is this protected, what's going to happen next? You realistically, mate, you're probably going to be able to 48 hours maybe before you're totally burnt out and fried. Things to combat it. You need a network of people around you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody next door, community wise. I mean, look at the three of us: one northwest, one northeast, one Scotland. So, like Brian said, if you're in the chat and you're talking to different people, even if something does happen, and you can still manage to be able to be in contact with people. Like, say if something did happen, we message Brian, what's it like in Scotland? Mike, what's it like over there? You, for me, know what's it like in Newcastle. Community is what's going to pull you through the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on your own, paranoia is going to be through the roof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you said before, Mike, in one of your videos, at some point you need to sleep. So if you're going alone, and I think for that, mate, if I knew someone was a lone wolf and I was that way inclined, I would just sit there and watch, and when you fall asleep, I'd just go and pinch your stuff. So at some point, you know, if you, well, you know what it's like, mate. If you've been awake for 4 or 5 days with minimal sleep and exercise, you drop, and people could rob you and whatever, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bombs could go off.
Yeah.
No, I can sleep through anything now. Brian, is there any way to mitigate them kind of effects, that stir crazy, that, you know, crashing out, without the community? We gotta think about this from a perspective of somebody that won't do that networking. Is there anything they can do themselves to mitigate it?
Keep busy, self-educate, right? But fundamentally, my personal opinion is they've made a mistake, and a big mistake right at the get-go, if they don't have anybody to talk to about it, if they're not willing to even join a club, archery club, anything that gets you out socially. Because the fact that they're in the house and they're worrying about prepping in the first place on their own, that's not a healthy starting point.
No.
Go out. This isn't something to sit in a cupboard and count beans and worry about all day. No, this is to help your life. This isn't your life. Go out, meet people, join a club. The prepping will come after that. This is an add-on. It's not what you want to be doing. This is a bolt-on.
Yeah. Is there anything you could advise, Andy, on preppers how to mentally prepare? Because obviously we don't want to fill them with anxiety and stuff like that. So is there any like practical resources, books, courses, communities, things like that?
Well, so if you've got anxiety is based purely in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So because you're always worried, aren't you, what's going to happen? So anxiety is always future based. It's never looking backwards, always looking forward. So the best thing to do if you're worried about something happen is, you know, there was a guy in the army who always used to say, his name was Nick, and if we ever had to do something that could be put off, his phrase always was, "That's future Nick's problem." And I use that now to some extent. If I can't bother doing something, so I'll say that's future Andy's problem, and he'll deal with it. But to get rid of the anxiety, if you are, say for example, if you live in if you live somewhere that's likely to flood,
mm-hmm.
and you're worried about that possibility, and it's a real possibility, to reduce the anxiety, all you need to do is put a few steps in place that help negate how bad that would be. So you put a go bag together, you've got important documents in, you've got a power bank in, you've got clothes, you've got food, you've got this important contact details, you've got some cash, and that should help reduce your anxiety. Because if that thought spirals and you think, right, there's going to be a flood, you then have to reprogram your brain to think, right, if there's a flood, I'll grab the kids, I've got 3 go bags. Everybody knows where they are. The best thing that ever got told me, mate, was your brain is like the hardware of a PC, and the way you think is the software. Your brain doesn't think anything. It's you tell your brain to think a certain way. So if you do have anxiety, like say, for example, of a flood, if you put things in place, you have to combat a negative thought with a positive one. So if you're spiraling about XYZ situation, if you put XYZ solutions in place, that's what you can combat your negative thoughts with a positive one. And then over the course of time, that negative thought will be removed with a positive one. So when something does pop in your brain, you're like, XYZ's happened, you're like, right, go back. Whatever your plan would be, whatever the disaster would be. I mean, in terms of books, mate, I mean, there's 1,000,001 things out there that you could read, that you could do. I mean, I used to practice 4 different types of therapy when I was working with somebody. So I think the main thing is that one size doesn't fit all, and CBT, which is what the NHS uses. The only reason they use that is because you can measure it on a metric basis, and you can say Andy comes in here and he goes out here. Is he improved? It doesn't suit everyone, mate. It doesn't suit every people who are neurodivergent or autistic. CBT doesn't work with. So there's certain groups of people, mate, where CBT just don't work. It doesn't work on me either. I find it boring, and there's a lot of homework. If you're not in homework when you leave. Like
I never did it at school.
I had to do some of my own therapy before I could qualify, just part of the course.
Yeah.
And I can remember doing that, and I was like, and the therapist's like, well, you need to do this. I was like, I'm not doing anything when I leave. I'll work my nuts off for the hour you've got me. But the instant I walk out this room, I've got 1,000,001 things that are far better than I can spend my time on. So you have to find the therapy that suits you best. And like I say, there's 1,000,001. There's 1,000,001 books and therapies and different routes to go down. I mean, if people wanted a more direct answer of what they're struggling with, by all means, people can message me and I'll help them out with it.
Yeah. Pulling on what you said there, Brian, should I bother prepping, or is SHTF future Mike's problem?
Let me just spin that round then.
Go on.
It'll be future Mike's kids' problem, and that'll be a motivating factor for most parents. You might not believe in prepping or common sense or the sense of security that it should give you, but I think you've got a responsibility, and everyone's got a responsibility to their loved ones. I might not believe. I might think nothing's ever going to happen and it's all a lot of bollocks. However, I've got a responsibility, and I take that really, really seriously. But not at the exception that their life suffers, only that it enhances. And I like it. Don't get me wrong. It gives me a sense. Somebody was asking in the chat there. I get a lot of security out of prepping. It makes me happier to do it. So it improves my mental health, that I know if most things took a little turn for the worst, then, like Andy said earlier, my quality of life will not suffer greatly. And also I'll be in a position to help some people. So I like it. It makes me happy.
Yeah. One of the comments was Bushra, who said, instead of only fueling anxiety, can it be argued that prepping provides sense of security also against uncertain times? Is that your thoughts on it as well, Andy? Yeah,
100%, mate. That is my... That 100%, I agree with what you're saying there. That's my mindset. I mean, somebody, I don't know how we got into it the other day. Somebody's asking me about being a prepper and how they thought it was ridiculous, and they just come off holiday as well. And I said to them, so when you went on holiday, did you have holiday insurance? And they're like, well, of course I did. I said, what did you have that for? Then did anything go wrong? And they were like, well, no. So what did you have it for then? And like, well, in case something went wrong. I was like, well, there you go then, bingo.
I lost you for a second there, Andy.
Lost you. Go back.
So everybody, mate, to a certain extent, preps. They just don't think it is. So when you go on holiday, you've got holiday insurance. All that is a backup plan in case something happens to you or your family, and that's all you're doing in the UK. Just in the UK, you have more room and more funds to do stuff that you don't abroad. That's all it is. But I agree with what that guy just said. If you have anxiety about the future, putting things in place to maintain your quality of life if something goes wrong, is surely the antidote to anxiety. If you're worried about what if this happens, well, if this happens, I've got X, Y, and Z, a million for Bentos pies. That's what
Yeah.
the
he's got
Always
he's got
attacking
all
me,
the
the
fries. No, it's true that I think of it the same way. Like it's my security blanket is prepping.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel better, even if nothing happens. I usually use the argument, I mean, because I would get some smart ass to go, no, I don't get holiday insurance. I usually use the case of, do you have plasters at home? Do you have a first aid kit? Why? Are you bleeding right now? No. Why have you got it then? So it's the same sort of argument.
Yeah.
Mohammed Al Mustafa says, hope everyone is well. It's good you're talking about mental health. I went through a really bad case, but doing better now. Learning MMA, bodybuilding, and footy helped me get over issues mentally. I'm a massive advocate of this. I think mind and body are connected so much, and I've been in really dark places, and the gym and sports and MMA and stuff like that have brought me out of it. What's the physical mental connection, do you think, Brian? Are you an advocate of that? Healthy body, healthy mind?
Yeah, it's just my body's broken at the moment, but I'm totally on board with that. The self-esteem alone, right? If you're walking past the mirror and your shirt's fitting well, or if it's a lady and she's got a dress that fits well, you're automatically going to feel happier in yourself. However, if you're walking past and you look like a sack of spuds, then it's going to take a little dent to your self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You're out shopping for clothes and you're going up the X's, right? Rather than fitting, you're buying what fits rather than what you want to wear. And that's just one aspect. So the physical attributes of having a healthy body are manifest in the mind in so many different ways. And that's before you get the feel-good factor for the endorphins after a good workout. You know, there's a lot of things to be said for it.
Yeah, and it's that, Andy, you'll relate with the military side of things. I think that physical exercise, even if you are still rocking the dad bod, and some people are quite happy to do that, it's the actual physically doing that, like, vents in a way. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with everything Brian said there, mate. And there's been 1,000,001 studies about how your mental health is affected by fitness and how fitness increases your mental health and that type of stuff. Like we've spoke about on the other podcast as well, mate. The fitter you are, you handle high stress and high pressure events much better. Mm-hmm. If you're fitter, your body can just physically take the pressure and the stress a lot better if you're fit. So they both go hand in hand,
Yeah. Now we've lost 20 subscribers instantly by mentioning fitness again. They don't like the word. Ready Prepper One said, I was in that situation. I reached out to Mike on this channel and here we are. There you go. So networking doesn't have to be in person. You can reach out. You can reach out on here. You can email me even. And we've got forums and all sorts. So there's ways around it.
I think Lady Green had a question for you.
I'm getting through it.
Sorry.
Was that one? How much do you believe how much do you think believe something terrible will happen? I don't, but it still feels utterly crap. Is that not just her defining CBT?
Could be.
Could be.
Any exercises for well-being if stuck in the house for a long period of time?
Calisthenics. Bodyweight exercises.
Yoga.
Yoga. I never had the patience for yoga. It was too slow.
I mean, to be fair, if that was a worry, mate, even if you haven't got a garden, there's loads of people who grow microgreens. There's people who grow, there's a lot of little things like that would take your mind off things that would keep you focused. It gives you a focal point in the morning. What the microgreens, cut them back. There's loads of little things like that, mate. Even if you're short on garden space. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got quite a big garden, so we've got a veggie patch here. But there's all the hard thing to replicate, mate, is being in that situation until it happens. Mm-hmm. So once you're in that situation, your brain will naturally kick in, and you might, and like Liam might be sat there one day, and a random thought will come to a brain of, "Oh, this might be a good idea to try." This might be a good idea to try. Your brain, mate, will take over and new things will pop into your brain once you're in that situation where you are just sat there with nothing to do.
Yeah. Brian, not so much physical exercises with regards to that question, but what about mental exercises for being stuck in the house long periods of time? Because we went through it, right? We've all kind of been through it. And like you say, as soon as people were allowed out to go for a walk, then everyone was suddenly happier. What can they do to not get in that same sort of funk?
Routine. You've got to have routine. We're made to crave routine. When we lose routine, bad shit happens. So if you're in the house and you can't get out and you're going to start crazy, you need to create a routine. If that even means that you're grabbing tins and you've got it on your whiteboard that you go up and you're going to rotate them at 10 o'clock every morning, and then at 11 o'clock, you're going to check your water supplies. Right? Then at 12 o'clock, you're going to go for a walk around the house, up and down the stairs till you're burst. 1 o'clock, you're going to play with the kids. You're going to invent games. You're going to be creative. You've got to create that routine, because without that routine, you're going to go in a spiral.
Yeah. We'll go into the comments. Lydia said, I absolutely hate how women's exercise is focused on weight loss. I need to put it on. A good PT, but if you need any help, Lady J, feel free to send me an email. Done personal training and nutritionist. There's loads of things you can do, and it's not that difficult. Emma says, thanks, gentlemen, for talking about this today. Refreshing to see people, especially men, talking about mental health. Watching prepper channels gave me such anxiety, but now after starting, I feel better. That's the problem, right? When you first get into this, most people get into prepping because of a situation. Is that the case for you guys? I mean, was it something that happened that caused anxiety that started you prepping?
Yeah, 100%. I've been over that one 100 times. Bad winter, nothing in the house, 3 young hungry children, and I'm queuing in a single lane of Tesco's trying to get food and trudging through the snow to get it, and I swore blind I'd never do it again. Emma's comment, that's why I'm spending an hour of my time tonight doing this, so that people don't get anxious, because if you're clicking through the internet, all you see is the end of the world is nigh, and it happens 3 or 4 times a day.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. Life is good. Just be prepared for the odd occasion when it takes a shitty turn.
The problem is the algorithm likes doomsayers and fear-mongering more than rational thoughts and rational speaking. Andy, was it the same for you? Was it a moment of high anxiety that started you on your prepping journey?
No, it was the floods in York that we were on. I want to say this is a decade ago now, so I'm racking my brain, but I want to say we were on maybe 6 to 8 hours notice to move, to go down and help with the floods, because at one point, mate, they genuinely thought like houses were going to get washed away. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
I didn't end up going down, but some of the lads did, and I remember speaking to them on the phone and via WhatsApp and stuff, and they were saying that they were knocking on people's doors and saying, you've got 2 minutes to pack some stuff together. And the people were saying, well, how long do we pack for? And at the time, mate, they generally thought there was going to be no houses left. So they were like, pack, like you're not coming back. And when they were telling me that was what got me started on this, because I thought it wasn't a source of anxiety for me because I wasn't involved. But at the time, I thought, if that happened to me,
yeah,
it would be mentally, you'd be packing irons, you'd be packing a tin of paint, like your brain would be through the roof with what do I pack and what I don't pack. So
who's carrying that carpet? That was expensive.
So that, mate, was what sent me on the sent me down the route. But it wasn't a source of anxiety. It was just at the time my brain was like, oof, if that happens to me, I would not be in a good place. And then here we are now.
Yeah. I held this up and Brian laughed because it's not a cheap plug. And it's not that kind of plug either. I've done a video.
It's a fight against the aliens.
It's the Survivor USB drive, and just you're on about there. What do you pack if you might not be coming back? Just having a backup of everything, birth certificate, stuff like that, is worth having on something like this. I've done a video on it if you want to check that out at some point. But yeah, it's your mind would go a million miles a minute. How do you train though? How do you train for these situations? I mean, I'll ask Brian because he might have a video coming soon about this kind of thing. But how do you prepare yourself?
Well, that's a loaded question. So the power one, the next video I do when I get 5 minutes, I'll be simulating a grid down event. So I'm going to kill, and it's caused me some out of shit in this house doing this. I'm killing it out of the house for at least 24 hours. And when you've still got 2 adult children and a slightly feral borderline wife, then there was an element of pushback, shall we say. So hence why I bought another 2 power banks the other day, just so that the kids have got a small one in their room each. So I want to simulate what would happen and how life would be for 24 hours with no power. And I want to see what works. I want to see what doesn't work. And then I can tweak it or adjust it in a situation where I'm under no pressure, because I don't want to find out the hard way that I've bought this or I've done this and I've planned that and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
doing that, Andy, what Brian's doing there, he's got that safety net, right? At any point during that 24 hours, he could think it's not worth it, flick the power back on. It's difficult to train for the situation where you've not got that safety net, right? When I did my walk, at one point, I was low on water. I was at a place where 0 phone signal, 0 population. There's a clip in the video where I pan round and you just can't see anything for miles. And I felt that for a moment, like I am literally on my own here. And it's difficult to kind of train for that situation, right?
Yeah, of course it's, the real element of danger you can't really simulate. But by doing what Brian's doing, it's taken away. Maybe like if Brian does it, he might find 5 or 6 things that do go wrong that he fixes. So if it does happen for real, those 5 or 6 things are already sorted out, and his plan is a lot more streamlined. In terms of running the plan, a guy said to me years ago when we were doing some training for something else, he always used to say, if your brain doesn't know if this is fake or real, you're telling it it's fake. So if you train like it's real, you do kind of get a little bit of element of danger there. It makes it a little bit more spicy if you think, right, if I go into this room, there's a guy there with a gun who's going to shoot me. Your brain will believe you. You know, it's like what we're talking about earlier with mental health. If you're telling your brain constantly that you want to stick in a negative state, it will do. So, true, you can't simulate it fully, and there's always they always say, don't they, a plan never survives first contact. But you can make sure that it's pretty rock solid, and then anything you can iron out now is just going to make it easy for you when it does happen, which is what we've been saying all night. Just try and maintain the quality of life that you have now.
Go on, Brian.
There's definitely an element of danger. When you're telling 3 adults you're going to turn all the power off, trust me, there's an element of danger in this house.
Listen, Brian, divorce is not a way of streamlining your preps. I'm just throwing that out there now.
Just for the record, in case I'm no longer on next week, I do not routinely bath with a toaster. I'm just putting that out there.
In the UK household, it's hard to fake that because not many have outlets in the bathroom. Why is there an extension cord all the way to the bathroom?
I can imagine the conversation with the police. I tried to tell him, officer, no more watching the plasma TV in the bath with the toasty maker. And then he's preps.
We have to laugh. Miss Worm said, a lot of people with social phobia anxiety find internet chatting terrifying. These are the people that are going to struggle with the networking side of things, right? What can you say did you ever experience anyone with that social phobia anxiety, Andy, in your field?
Oh, what do you mean during therapy?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of people who had social anxiety, who had phobia. I definitely think it was tenfold since the big C, like Brian said, being devoid of human contact, of community for however long it was, the 2-3 years that we were going through it.
Yeah.
It 100% it made people worse. And naturally, if you are in, if you're predisposed to that and you already kind of think that way and you have a phobia and you're kind of scared about the internet chatting and things, if you're on a certain channels on YouTube and they're telling you you've, like Brian said, you've died for the 5th time a day, that's just going to reinforce those stereotypes of what people in the community are like. I would like to think, mate, if any of the people in the chat bumped into any of us in the street, they'd feel quite happy to bump in and to have a chat with us. I think doing the firesides, mate, and doing the videos you do needs to be done, because we have to challenge the narrative out there that we're all nutcases, and and I appreciate the videos you do make, because it does have to change. And like the people in the chat have been saying tonight, it's refreshing to see some guys talking about mental health and talking about prepping in a light and good way. I think that's the only way to combat the phobia of, like, what Miss Worm was talking about.
Yeah. What's the first steps of that? Like, if I was a client, came in, social anxiety, I can't go out the house, almost agoraphobic because of it. What's like the baby steps? What's the first point? What's the first step for something like that? Prepping aside, just as a mental health issue.
The hard thing, mate, with something like that is you don't get any better by protecting yourself from the thing that you're scared of. It just compounds the problem, makes it worse. So if, for example, like Miss Worm was saying, if you have a phobia of chatting on the internet, at some point you have to break the barrier of that. Now, whether that will be she reaches out to you, Brian, or I, and sends us a message, and that's how you get the first one going. And then from there, maybe you move on to the forum, or you move that at some point. You don't get better by protecting yourself from the thing you're afraid of. That's not how you cure a phobia. Mm-hmm. So at some point, and I appreciate it's hard, but if someone come to me like that, the first step would be to make contact with someone you feel safe with. I'm not talking about going straight from here to a random chat room with a bunch of weirdos, but there has to be a small step that helps you climb the mountain of ultimately being comfortable going to the place you don't want to go. Like I say, whether that would be messaging one of us three, whether you message on the forum. There's ways to do it in a safe way, but you don't get better, mate, and you're never going to overcome the phobia by hiding away from the thing that you're scared of.
Yeah, all the way up until the point where I've got about 130,000 subscribers. Then I'll be like, no pictures, please. No pictures. I like this one. Learner Prepper said, we use emergency situation check cards at work. I may implement this at home regarding flooding and blackout. That could be a cool prep for somebody with kids as a game. Like, pick a card. Now we've got to do this. Maybe don't say a nuke's fallen, you're all going to die, but make it a fun aspect of it.
I think that is a really, really clever idea.
Yeah,
because I think that would be, so say for example, Brian, when Brian does his if he survives his blackout scenario and his wife doesn't kill him, if you have those blackout cards, mate, you could pretty much tailor them to whoever lived in your house as well. So if it did happen, Brian knows, right, I've got to do A, B, C, D, and E to get the house sorted in the way we need it. And if he gives one of them to his wife and his two kids, and theirs, for example, says, make sure this is unplugged, make sure this is turned on, and everyone's got the job, that takes the element of, if your brain is focused on a sequence, that kind of takes away the scariness of the situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a brilliant idea, especially if you tailor it for each member of your household. I think it'd be a great idea.
You're going to get away with more than one drill, Brian. You're going to make some cards.
I can imagine that game. We're playing top trump with prepper cards. I see your 3 of beans with the sausage roll card.
Jesus. You can throw me under the bus, Brian, say it was my fault.
You could sell it to the missus saying one card in there is a shopping spree, So
Should just play the death card. Just a picture of a toast and a kind of chunky monkey in a bath. The only thing I would say is, I like that idea. I think it's great, purely because of the burden of responsibility. It's okay me collecting stuff, knowing how things work. But if nobody, the first aid one was the best one. I live in a house with a nurse, student nurse, my other daughter's a nurse, and there's not one of them I'd like put on a plaster. But that aside, if something goes wrong, the burden of first aid's on me. What if something happens to me? And that applies to all the preps and all the situations. So for that alone, those cards, I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, interesting. Make some good content, maybe. Thanks for that one, Learner Prepper. Ready Prepper One said, the most important thing to everyone is your time. Every second you have your head in your phone, someone else is consuming your time. After this podcast, then listen to that advice. You know, keep your head in your phone while we're on the screen. But yeah, I get what he's saying there, definitely. Top trumps with Frey Bento's pies, but which gets more points, steak and kidney or chicken?
I see your chicken and I raise you, whatever the hell this is, a steak and gravy.
Trade's playing his top trump Bovril card. Right. Take prepping out the equation. Well, one last question before we close up, because I've got to drive to Scotland after this for me Frey Bentos when he's asleep. Are there specific tools, coping methods, or resources you could recommend for anyone struggling? Now, I know I sort of mentioned this before, but just in general, Brian, with mental health, anyone that's obviously you always want somebody to reach out, but have you got any advice?
Surround yourself with good people, and that'll solve a lot of your problems straight away. Unfortunately, if you surround yourself or you're surrounded with negative people, that they'll sap the life right out of you. Right? Mm-hmm. It's very hard to remain upbeat when everybody else is singing on the Titanic as it's going glug glug. Try and find positivity. You can't always create it. You've got to try and find it. But don't surround yourself with the Nelly naysayers of life and everything is awful. Right? You don't need that shit in your life. That will drag you down.
Yeah. Andy?
Yep, I agree with what Brian said, mate, and also from being a therapist, mate, those years, the most important people, mate, to ask for help is your immediate friends and family. They're the people who care about you the most. Mm-hmm. They're the people who have got, you know, the most compassion for you. Those are the people who are going to move mountains to get you help and get you sorted. So if anyone is struggling and anyone is worried, the first port of call is your friends and family, because they're the ones who are going to help share the burden the most, and they're the ones who are going to help get you through it the best.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd recommend like sharing with somebody, even if it's just a single person, not like a lot of people. It could be a professional, it could be a family member. Sometimes people struggle to speak to family members because it could be something sensitive like that. So seek out a therapist, something like that. I've done it. I was one of those that I'm always fine and I never wanted to do it. And I eventually took the plunge, and literally just one session, that's all I had. But just letting it come out of my mouth, leaving my body, speaking to somebody was just all that was needed. I felt such a sigh of relief, because as I was talking and explaining, I was figuring out the solution in my head, because it was, you know, clearing that space, as it were. Which
that's why, mate. That's why, mate. The networking. I know we always seem to bang on about it, but that's why the networking in this community is so important. If you are on your own, if you are a singly and you have no extended friends or family, that's why the networking part of this is so important for that reason.
Yeah, when I went to the Midlands prepper meet, there was people there on their own, first time they'd ever done anything like that, and you could see the anxiety on them. But honestly, this community welcomes you in. So just take that step, take that plunge, take that risk. Worst case scenario, you get somewhere, you can always pack your car back up and leave, but just get there in the first place. We're doing this Scottish meet next year, and there's a few others on the cards that I'll let you know as and when details are confirmed. One down in Cornwall soon as well. So I'll let you know more details about all them, but get yourself to a meet and get involved with it. Miss Worm said, one of the best things for mental health is silliness. There we go. Miss Worm is the complete advocate for that one. Ready Prepper One said, I found loud music helps and just dance. There you go. I'll do the loud music and I'll sing along really terribly, but dancing, even I don't want to see.
Nobody wants to see me dance, Mike. That'll cause mental trauma.
Do it on your own, Brian, behind closed doors.
They'll have PTSD for sure.
Yeah. And this Dean's mentioning, similar to what I said, write it down, what's getting you down, and own it. But literally writing your things down. I know, I mean, a lot of the American therapists talk about keeping diaries and stuff like that. And if you're like me, you're like, no, I can't be asked keeping a diary. But just try it just once. Just write down your issue. It can make a massive difference. But I think that's all the time we've got, all the time we have tonight. So thank you for everyone. Post-traumatic Scottish dancing. Thank you for everyone joining in. We didn't want to have this as a doom and gloom mental health thing, but genuinely, if you are struggling and you don't want to reach out to any of us or your friends and family, you can always call the Samaritans, 116123. They're always happy to talk to you on the phone. And if you have the anxiety about actually ringing somebody, there's a great service called Shout. Just text Shout to 85258. Similar sort of service as the Samaritans. So take note of them two numbers if you do need the help. But I'm always here. I'm sure the other lads are exactly the same. You can reach out to any of us and we're happy to talk to you.
Everybody's approachable.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Would you like to say your good final thoughts and goodbyes, Brian?
That's good to see everybody. The chat was active as always, and the usual barbed insults and crazy questions. So no, it's good.
Excellent. Andy, would you like to say goodbyes and any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a great chat tonight, guys. A really good topic, important topic. I hope and I feel like a lot of people have got some good things from it. If anybody does want to reach out, by all means, send me a message on Instagram, Alpha Kilo Prepper, and my name's Andy Hardy in the Prepper groups on Facebook. You probably see me comment stuff on there about kits and gear. So if anybody does want to reach out for anything, by all means, feel free.
There you go. So go and check out, what was it again? At Alpha Kilo Prepper on Instagram?
On Instagram, mate, yeah.
Yeah, so even if you're not reaching out, make sure you go and give him a follow. Make sure you check out Brian's channel at Scottish Prepper 73. If you're watching this, you better be subscribed to him as well. And from me, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.
See you there, guys.
Water stored in jugs and tins, bunkered down through thick and thin. Maps and routes all drawn and laid. Preppers live unafraid. At the Preppers' Fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. In the glow of embers dance, we've prepared for every chance. Living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue.